Okay, and we are live. There's your spin. Welcome to the Restaurants Grow podcast, where you get tips, tricks, and tactics on how to grow your restaurant business. Today on the show, we have Jeremy Julian, Chief Revenue Officer of Northstar Custom Business Solutions. They have a comprehensive point of sale technology that's custom fit for the needs of the restaurant. Jeremy, now he has spent over 30 years working in restaurants and restaurant technology. That's like almost like pre-technology. Jeremy has worked in support. He's done install, sales, product development, and more. And he's supported restaurants in nearly like every single role you could possibly have on the supplier side. Jeremy is also the host of the Restaurant Technology Guys podcast, which if you haven't checked out, you should. It's an excellent show dedicated to exploring the transformative impact of technology in the restaurant industry, which is absolutely what they do in the show. If you have questions about restaurant tech, appreciate deep insights, or want to stay on top of what's happening in the world of restaurant technology, that show is worth a listen. Jeremy is also the father of 4 kids, ranging in age from 9 to 19. That sounds like a lot of headaches, beautiful ones. And he loves cooking smash burgers at home. I'm super honored to have Jeremy on the Restaurants Grow podcast. He's one of the nicest, most thoughtful, and kindest people in the business. Fun fact, Jeremy was born in the same hospital as Bruce Springsteen right here in New Jersey. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rob. I'm gonna have to transcribe that and put that on my tombstone or something, man. That was a lot.
You can just put it in your LinkedIn bio. Okay, I keep hearing people say that POS, that point of sale, is dead. Is that like a thing, or is it just like a headline designed for clickbait? And what does that even mean to begin with?
I don't think POS is dead. I think that POS is transforming. I think POS is the business transaction engine at the heart of everything that we do in restaurants. And I think all too often it doesn't look the same way that it once did. It doesn't look like, a whole bunch of big boxy terminals. You talked about my history and where I came from. I started when it was all big CRT monitors that weighed 40 pounds, and you'd have to like rub your feet on the carpet to get this touchscreen to actually work back in the day, back in the 90s. I'm not kidding. And so you'd go walk around the dining room to be able to get the touchscreen to work. So it doesn't look the same as it once did, but the heart of the business rules that go on to make restaurants efficient, it is the POS.
All right. So then let's answer this question. When I keep seeing the headline that POS is dead, is that clickbait, or are people trying to say that there's an evolution in tech coming?
It's clickbait. It's clickbait at the end of the day, because there still needs to be a data broker that takes cash, that gives you the data to make better business decisions. At the end of the day, POS was generated to protect your assets, protect the inventory, protect the cash that you're bringing in. And there's still something that's at the heart of that. You might call it something else. You might call it a digital transaction engine, but at the end of the day, it's still just a POS in my mind.
Amen. I've never heard the words data broker used in this way before. I am 1,000,000,000% stealing that. So if anybody else hears me say it, it was Jeremy Julian that said it first.
It is, though. But at the end of the day, whether it's coming from your third-party delivery, it's coming from your guests, from your staff members, from an app, somebody needs to broker that data to be able to figure out what did you sell, how much did you sell it for, what taxes did you collect, for reporting, inventory purposes, and all of that. And so something needs to be in that middleware. It's an ERP for a restaurant at the end of the day.
Okay, here's a question for me. That sounds beautiful. Like, to me, who's the data guy who wants to look at all the information, understand my guest habits, think about ways that I can, change their habits in the direction I want it to, while it still feels natural to the way they do. That sounds beautiful. But I actually don't think that's what's happening out there. I feel like a lot of POS companies out there are actually behind the desires or needs of the operators, and that they're just out there cash grabbing for processing money. I said it out loud. You did not. I mean, am I off base? Am I being a jerk? Is that the truth? Like, what do you think the state of POS is right now?
I think there's very few POS companies out there that are in it for the technology. There's a industry blogger that's out there, whistleblower, he called himself this morning on his latest blog post, that talks about the advent of a guy named Jordan Thaler, a friend of mine. And he talks about the fact that whether it's Square, who started it years ago, or Toast, who is got, multiple $billion market cap, everybody wants to get into that transaction because so many of the transactions went digital. When I started, it was still 10, 20% of the transactions happen on a card. Now, most brands are 90+% card transactions. And so because of that, there's a monetization strategy. And unfortunately, I don't know that I think restaurants have created some of it for themselves because they don't value the data. You talked about the data, and they don't value the automation that a brand that does a true POS that's trying to make operators' lives better. They don't value that. And so they're not willing to pay for it because they think it's a commodity. All POS companies do the same thing. And so technology companies have said, you know what? I've got to figure out how to continue to build my product. I got to find another way to monetize it. And nobody knows how they're getting charged on their credit cards. And so they've figured out there's ambiguity, there is margin. And so unfortunately, these tech companies are very high tech. They figure out how to get into the credit card stream, and they're taking a percentage of restaurants' profits while not necessarily adding value to the operators' lives in a meaningful way.
Oh my God, I'm going to put that on my tombstone, but you're still going to get credit for that.
But it's true, and more it becomes what almost all are doing. And again, philosophically, because I've been doing this for 30 years, I believe in adding value first. Get the operators' lives better. Get customer number one, which is the person that's dealing with the guest in the store, and customer number two, which is the corporate office that has to make business decisions. Let's solve their problems so that they can continue to grow their restaurants by building systems that are going to make their lives easier and not break down, and then monetize it for what it is that's going to add value to their lives, not necessarily just because they grow in sales and so I make more money.
Amen. All right, let's not try to fix the industry, although I very much like to. I think part of the problem with POS, and tell me if you feel differently or if I'm skewed, is that it was built to help advance transactions, right? And most of the thought and thinking and engineering design that goes behind POS is about transactional history. And we don't call them restaurants, we call them restaurant operators,
Mhm.
right? And so they are the business inherently is operational, right? But what moves the needle when you look at something like why do people love Chipotle, or why do people love Ruth Chris, or why is Panera Panera? It has nothing to do with the transaction, and it has everything to do with brand affinity, right? And so I feel like the most successful restaurant brands out there have figured out how to make branding and operational success become one. Okay.
Yes.
And so when the heart of your technology is designed to help operations, but does not think about how to help marketing and branding, that's where I think the actual disconnect is in both the technology and how it's used. I don't know if you feel the same or you don't feel the same.
I do, and I would say that traditional legacy point of sale solutions were built in an offline mode because the internet didn't exist when most point of sale systems were created, and so it was built for a single store operator. And so getting data for marketing, getting data for the branding team didn't exist. It was really hard, and most of the largest brands still have not changed off of that. Come 2020, 2019, 2020, when the advent of a lot of these payment focused technologies came out, they put walled gardens up around their data because they are technology companies first and payment companies first. And they put walled gardens, and they won't let the operators get to that. They won't let the marketers get to it without paying exorbitant fees or making it really challenging for them to do that because they believe it's going to hinder their ability to monetize that data. And so they put gardens up so that they don't allow you to do that. The most successful operators partner with their technology providers to solve those problems and fight to get the right thing in the hands of the operators. Because Chipotle's value proposition is different than Panera's, is different than Ruth Chris. Every one of them create a value proposition, but the best brands in the world partner with their technology providers to solve those guest challenges, to solve the operators challenges, to solve marketing challenge, to solve finances challenge. And they partner with companies like ours and others that are really listening to where operators are looking for, the people that are actually using the data, to give it to them in a way that they can make actionable data to make guest experience and staff experience better.
Amen. I think the two biggest mistakes, all restaurant technology mistakes, the two biggest ones they make are the following. Again, feel free to argue. No, number one, they don't answer their phone. If it's not easy for me as the operator to get in contact with you to get a question answered in a relatively fast way, and again, you use the word relatively, then you've made a mistake. Like if there's a wall to getting an answer, mistake number one. And mistake number two, and I actually think this is the biggest mistake of all, is not being proactive in calling the operators and telling them what to do next.
Yep, I would agree. And part of why my cell phone number and our CEO's cell phone number and everybody on our leadership team's cell phone number and email address is on our website, because we are, after all, in the hospitality industry. And yes, we might not be as big as Toast, but at the end of the day, if I can't talk to the guests And then the second piece that I would say is we have had a practice, and I think more technology companies, and the ones that I see the most successful have been killing it this way, is they spend time with their brands to understand where they're going. We have a quarterly business review process. Just got a recap from one of our CSMs, did a quarterly business review with one of our brands, happens to be one of your favorite brands out of the South that serves biscuits through a drive-through. And he gave me a recap and he did a QBR and he talked about where their business was going. And it is going to identify our product roadmap to where we're going so that we can enhance what it is that they're looking for. If you're not, as a technology company, listening to your operators and where they're at and where they're going, you are losing, because at the end of the day, somebody else is going to listen to them. And so not only picking up your phone, but understanding where those people are going and bringing them value. I constantly go out to trade shows. I see you on the trade show circuit. I'm going around and finding those pieces of technology so that I can bring them back to people. Voice AI is a big thing. I was just texting with the last meal that you and I had together was at Torchy's. I just texted the CIO of Torchy's and said, hey, talk to me a little bit about how it's going. Tell me how it is partnering with these guys, because I want to figure out, is that brand that you worked with a good brand to put in front of some of our other customers, because it is something that's important to them. So now I bring that value to the next customer because they want voice AI to be able to take a phone order from a computer to be able to help offload some of those very basic orders that are going in. So for us, it's always been a practice to listen to those customers on a quarterly basis and get that feedback about where the brand is going, and then work that into either a partnership strategy or our own, core product.
I have one request of voice AI, because the voice AI I use the most is on here. Her name's Siri. And I just want her to know that I wasn't trying to say the word ducked.
Love that. That's funny. That's hilarious.
All right, question. I would definitely want to get into some tactics here. What is like one thing that you see restaurants get tripped up on when they are evaluating new tech, and like how would you advise them to think around that?
I don't think they do a good job of defining what their problem is. I think that they either have a Me Too mentality, and you and I have talked about this offline. They have a lot of, oh, somebody just put out a press release that they're doing this, I got to go figure it out. But they don't have a clear direction about what does success look like, even internal to our own business. And we have something called an impact filter. It's a one-page summary of what it is that you're trying to get accomplished when you're working on a project. And anybody that comes to me with a project and says, hey, I want to do this, I ask them to fill out an impact filter. Impact filter is literally a one-page. What's the worst thing that's going to happen if you don't do this project? What's the best result? What are you expecting to have happen? Because that now informs your decision-making process when you're going in to meet with these vendors, meet with these partners. Because voice AI, if you're getting 3 calls a day into your venue, voice AI probably isn't going to solve any of those problems. But if you're missing 20, 30, 40 orders a day because you can't staff the phones, you got to figure out a solution, because you know what? At $20 a pop, that's $600 a day. What does that look like? And so I think clearly identifying what it is that you're trying to solve for is the number one thing that I see. The second thing I see often in restaurant brands is they don't resource it appropriately. They tell somebody that's already running a bar, hey, you go add this to your job description, and they get stuck because they don't know what the priority is. But when a guest is standing in front of you, you have to deal with them. If you've got a marketing campaign that needs to go out and you're a marketing director, you have to send out that email blast. You have to do that social post because you've got a calendar that you need to hit in order to drive those things. But they want you to go get this new marketing automation tool built in, and they don't resource it appropriately. They don't ask, what is this really going to take in the way of, and what's going to fall down when you're trying to implement this new project currently? And so those are probably the 2 biggest things that I see restaurant operators, whether it's an independent all the way up through some of the largest chains in the country, I've seen have both of those problems.
And then, okay, that makes sense. How would you advise they get around it? Like, what's the tactic for figuring out how to do that the right way?
So in that first one, I think I gave you an example. Use that impact filter. It's a guy named Dan Sullivan. He's an entrepreneurial coach. Use any kind of tool that's out there that's kind of a one-page business summary. What is it that you're trying to get? I happen to use the impact filter because I find it to be easy, but it really walks you through kind of, and it's self-explanatory. You can find them online out there. So for me, really defining what that problem is critical. And then secondarily, when you start to go do that research, build out a project plan. I would, no different than construction, double the time, double the money in the beginning. When I'm doing a construction project around the house, it's like, oh, this is going to cost you 20 grand to get this bathroom redone. and I really know that it's going to cost probably closer to 35, and it's going to take 2 weeks. It'll probably be 4 weeks or 6 weeks to get this done. And so I would tell operators to look at those projects and identify what is it going to take to do that. And then lastly, make it a priority to everyone in the business. Everybody that interacts with marketing needs to understand that if Rev is the marketing director for a brand, he is working on this, and this is his number one priority. So that when Rev gets somebody coming to him and saying, I really need this from you, you can say, well, the CEO just told me this is my number one priority. You either need to go get approval from him for me to stop working on this, or you need to, I can't do both. I can do one or I can do the other, but I can't do both. And so those to me are the two tactics that I would tell you, because executive buy-in and clear direction from the entire business as to what needs to happen and why. That's a part of the impact filter talks about the why. Why are we doing this? Why are we putting new marketing automation? Why are we putting new guest feedback in there? You tell the story of the table salt versus the kosher salt. And I love that story, but it's like, why are you putting in that guest feedback? I'm putting in that guest feedback because at the end of the day, if that customer doesn't order fries represent 12% of our menu mix. And if that menu item goes down because I didn't know that I put the wrong salt on there, what does that look like from a brand perspective?
Amen.
Sorry, I get a little passionate. My jersey comes out from time to time.
No, we're 100% aligned here. For me, when it's evaluating technology, it comes down to like, these are the two parts that I think a lot of organizations are missing. And when I say organizations, I mean enterprise to single unit. Okay. It's why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Like, what is it I'm trying to get to? Okay. And how am I going to measure the success of it?
Yep.
So if I'm evaluating technology, it's why am I doing it? Like, what is the thing I'm trying to get to? Which I think is another way of saying what you just said, but it's having a clearly defined goal. I need to achieve X. And why do I need to achieve it? And then the other thing is, how does it fit in the overall roadmap of what I'm trying to achieve?
Yep.
Right. And so when you have those two things, the other missing piece then is getting everybody on the team to row the same boat.
Absolutely.
Right. And again, if you're an independent operator or you're huge enterprise, it's the same thing. The boat is being rowed this direction. We are going here. This is how it adds in. And when everybody can have a clear picture of how that works, it's a lot easier to go, yes, we need this. No, we don't.
Well, the last piece I would say is I think a lot of people are impatient. They think, oh, I'm going to send out this email campaign and sales are going to go up by 20% tomorrow. And as well as I do, that doesn't happen. And so I think a lot of people, they set, even if they do all of those other things right, I think they also struggle because they think that immediately I roll out loyalty and now I've got loyal guests coming in, twice as much as they were before. And that also just doesn't happen.
Amen. All right, let's take this from a different perspective. Let's say, again, an organization, single unit, multi-unit, doesn't matter, has actually done a really good job of choosing technology, right? They have the right partners, they have the right POS, they have the right plugins, they have the right add-ons, they actually have a very good system. Okay. What do you think is one way to evaluate or use that system that operators currently aren't doing that they could do? That's a very big question with a lot of possibility.
It is. Where I think the biggest opportunity in a lot of restaurant brands that are doing it well is customizing the guest experience for them and how they want to interact with the brand. Um, Very large chicken brand out of Atlanta. I went to one of their stores recently with my daughter on a softball trip. The store happens to be 280 miles from my house. I was in a different city, and they started marketing to me to come in for breakfast. Is that customized to me? And again, I'm not picking on that brand, but now is it relevant to me getting that offer? I think way too often restaurants spray and pray their marketing offers and don't necessarily understand who the guest is and what they're looking to do with your brand. And I think it hurts. I think it hurts the validity of who you are. Every other commerce engine knows who we are, knows how we interact with my brand. Every day, Amazon says, I think you might like this. And it's very relevant to me. And my wife's offers are 180 degrees different from my offers. But all too often restaurants, and I tell a very true story, and I think the data and AI and the capabilities are there to customize the customer journey in ways that they've never been before. But I think it's the biggest opportunity for us to get closer to those e-commerce brands and others to be able to do that. And I just think more and more people need to be thinking about that. I don't drink. Don't care that you drink. Don't care that anybody drinks, but I personally don't drink. I sign up for somebody's loyalty program. They've never seen, I go there once a month. They've never seen alcohol on my check, but they keep sending me the beer of the month, the whiskey of the month, the this, the that. I don't drink. You'd know that in my basket, I've never had a beer. Why send me offers for beer? Because now I'm like, do I really trust that this brand even knows who I am? Because everybody wants to be, create the cheers and effect. And I think that there's way too few operators that have personalized that experience to allow the data to tell the story for you to create a good guest experience.
I have an easy hack for solving that problem.
And what is that?
It's on the opposite side.
Okay.
So if you have good list maintenance, meaning you're managing your customer data lists in the right way, you actually stop marketing to you entirely. So if I'm sending you a bunch of emails that I think are important to me as a brand or overall to my brand, and you just aren't opening, I'm going to send you an email that's like, yo, Jeremy, it's cool. Just unsubscribe. We don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to
Yeah.
remove you. And so it's actually way harder to do the level of personalization that you say. For a small organization, for McDonald's, it's probably much easier. But for like my one store, I can't do that. I just don't have the time. So what I do is I just make sure that the list is clean. And so if we did a bad job of marketing to you, or we're just not relevant to your life, I'm going to excuse you from the list.
Yeah. And I think I would be happier with that. But
Yeah.
I would tell you that the data out there exists, Rev, to be able to do this in ways that it never has. And so I think even for small operators, and you obviously are a marketer, but I think about a mutual friend that we know in Ovation. Ovation sending out a survey about a guest experience is great. Ovation asking, how was the chicken pot pie? How was the smash burger? How was the chicken tenders? Because they know what you ate today. That changes the game, in my opinion. And I think the closer we can get to that and the closer we can invest to creating that is something that I think all of us need to be choosing to invest time and energy in.
I'm so glad you picked Ovation. You're going to love this. So we have an automation that we run at Ovation at Handcraft Burgers and Brew, where I actually don't care if you ordered the item or not, but we send a custom question that says, how did you like our loaded tater tots? And I actually know if you ordered them or not, but I don't care. Okay.
Why do you do that?
Okay. So they can give 3 answers. They can say, I love them. I haven't had a chance to try them yet. Or I didn't know they existed. Okay. What I'm actually doing is incepting the purchase next time.
Yep.
Right. I'm also segmenting that database. So if I want to ping the people that said I haven't had the chance, I can now send a message to that group like, yo, did you try them yet? Again, I actually already know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But that item for me, that is an AOV increaser. If you order the tots, your AOV is higher. I know it. Right.
Yep.
So I'm using it purely for a totally different type of purchase. And I have the data. And by the way, it totally works.
Yeah. Well, and I would agree with that. I think that is also, and to me, using that data to change purchase behavior. You talked about it on my show, changing even their both frequency coming in and their modality. How do I change them to say, did you know that we have delivery? Did you know that we have, online ordering and pickup? Those are things that ultimately are going to drive the guest experience. But I think all too often people blast a generic message and hope and pray that it's going to change the behavior. And your answer of it's too hard as a small operator to do that was true years ago. I think the technology and the access to the data, if you can get it, if you're with the right partner, you preface this with, if you're with the right partner, allows you that capability to have these types of campaigns and these types of things that you can send out 400 different types of campaigns because bucketize who those people are without having to necessarily create 400 unique message threads and automations.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I make jokes, but I think that POS data is much easier to read for marketing purposes than people think it is. You know what I mean? I have a restaurant that you and I ate at not so long ago, where it's a single unit, and he was like, I don't know what happened. My November didn't even come close to my October. We just went into purchase. I mean, literally, he opened up his POS. He doesn't have a CDP. He doesn't have a CRM. We just looked. Get this, uh, we looked across 4 or 5 data points, and we realized that dinner time in store had a massive drop. Every
Mhm.
other channel, out the door, online, third party, all the numbers were the same. In store went down. However, his average order value went up. So something happened. I now have that data. I can be like, what happened? And I don't know. People aren't eating out, whatever. So you know what we did? We just sent an email. Oh,
Yep.
do you know you get an entire family meal for $60? Like, but like
Drives the behavior.
it took us 10 minutes of looking at the data. All right, Jeremy. So we have a hard out here in about 4.5 minutes, and I like to be exact on this thing being 30 minutes. Um, I want to ask you a very specific question. So much has changed in the last couple of years for restaurant business, faster than ever, and I think even more changed in 2024. Forget about the COVID thing. I think 2024 was a way more transformational year than people thought it was. They're going to realize this in 2 years. Okay, when is the right time to reevaluate the heart and soul of your tech? When is the right time to reevaluate your POS?
When you can't serve your guests and deliver the guest experience that you want to as a brand. When your POS is holding you back from doing what it is that you want to do. I would tell you, and you and I talked about this on my podcast, you had an email list that was an Excel spreadsheet back when you were running the bar and you were able to execute it. Did you require a POS to do that? Not necessarily. But for that brand, for that passion, for that strategy, you were fine. If you're trying to get into delivery, if you're trying to get into drive through, if you're trying to get into third party, if you're trying to get into kitchen video, if you're trying to get into CDP, any and all of those things, if your tech stack is preventing you from getting to where you want to go, whether that's growth, whether that's tech, whether that's service, answer on the phone, you can't grow because your managers are spending hours on the phone with their support people because they can't get a hold of anybody because it keeps breaking down. Those are the times that you need to evaluate it. And I can tell you that more than 50% of the industry is still running legacy POS that does not have the ability to interface to these things. And so they're cobbling together a bunch of makeshift solutions that ultimately prevent them from continuing to grow. And they spend time not making cheeseburgers, but dealing with POS and technology problems.
Okay, I love this. We're going to go specific here for a second. Um, if you have 500 units and you're in legacy POS, changing POS is not a small decision, right? There's a lot that goes into that. What is the point at which you need to switch POS and stop doing add-ons? Like how do you know when it's like I can't just band-aid this anymore? Like there's too many fingers in the dikes. You know what I mean?
Honestly, when your cost of POS and your cost of support just continues to go up year over year. Back to your credit card analogy earlier, it continues to go up, and the older POS companies continue to charge more and more. And unfortunately for those brands, ultimately it hurts them, and then they can't pivot. And you've seen in 2024, we talked about the amount of bankruptcies because people are on legacy tech and they can't go pivot. And so I think it's one of those things when you look at your P&L and you go, how much time are my managers spending dealing with this stuff? How much of my staff am I able to keep around because they can't deal with it? If it continues to go down, you're not going to keep staff members. It's hard enough to hire people anyway. And if they can't work on the POS because it goes down all the time and they're looking like an idiot standing in front of the guest because they can't take payment, it's a problem. And so you don't know it until it's probably too late. But I would tell you, everybody needs to keep their ear down to be looking at those things because it is something that is going to take a multi-year approach. If you're a 500 unit brand, it's going to take 2 to 3 years to replace your POS. And you should be looking at those things because if your current provider is not partnering with you, you have to be looking.
Okay, we got 1 minute left here. For somebody that's reevaluating their POS or thinking about POS, why would they want to consider Northstar?
You can get a hold of somebody. We're industry people. We're industry people that have been in the industry for 30 years. We have worked with every different brand, size, and style to help people to automate their business. And we are passionate about helping restaurant brands grow. We want them to continue to succeed, and we don't want them to have to focus on POS. We partner with them at a deep level to ensure that they can make cheeseburgers while we're dealing with the POS problems.
I love that. Jeremy Julian, CRO, CBS Northstar, you guys do great work. I appreciate the energy and personalization that you put into all the things that you do.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to hang out, and I'll see you in January and at Handcraft Burgers.
Amen. God bless. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Please jam that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you want to listen to. And if there's anybody you think on the show, send us a message. Jeremy, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Rob.